The sun had barely begun its climb over the Nevada desert when the transport plane's wheels scraped against the tarmac. A thin layer of dust rose around the landing gear as the aircraft slowed, the roar of its engines fading into the stillness of the high-security base. The commander, a grizzled veteran with decades of service etched into the lines of his face, watched from a shaded observation post. His sharp eyes scanned the arriving soldiers, noting their movements, their postures, their confidence, or lack thereof. Yet, his gaze lingered longer than usual on the newest arrival. She stepped off the plane with calm precision, a woman in her late 20s, tall and lean, carrying nothing more than a small rucksack and the unmistakable weight of purpose in her stride. Her uniform was impeccable, sleeves rolled neatly, patches secured, boots shining. There was no flourish in her movements, no attempt to draw attention. Yet, in the quiet confidence of her steps, she commanded an aura that even the most experienced soldiers could not ignore. Whispers began almost immediately among the men waiting to greet the newcomers. "Who's she?" muttered a young corporal, nudging his friend. "Probably some paper pusher," came the skeptical reply. "I've seen her type before. They think a few PT sessions make them ready for this." The commander heard the whispers, but said nothing. He had seen enough rookies, men and women, alike come in thinking competence could be faked. Experience could not be faked, and he had decades of it. Still, there was something about her that caused a subtle pause in the usual chatter. She didn't hurry, didn't scan the faces around her nervously, didn't try to charm anyone. She simply moved with purpose, eyes forward, mind seemingly elsewhere. Her rucksack contained a Barrett .50 sniper rifle, dismantled and carefully packed. A weapon of such precision and power demanded respect and skill. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Handling a Barrett was no simple task. Its recoil had unseated many a less experienced shooter. The commander's curiosity piqued. He was no stranger to rumors of record-breaking snipers, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he considered that perhaps she was more than she seemed. Corporal Green, yet the orientation started. "And keep your eyes open," the commander muttered under his breath. He had learned the hard way that the quietest soldiers sometimes made the greatest impact. The newcomer followed the standard check-in procedure without complaint. ID scanned, fingerprints verified, a quick medical assessment. She moved with efficiency, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, took in the surroundings, the barracks, the training grounds, the shooting ranges in the distance. She noted the terrain, the elevation changes, the wind direction. Every detail mattered. The commander saw the subtle flicker of attention and filed it away. She was assessing, evaluating. That was a soldier, not a civilian with a fancy uniform. The rest of the unit gathered near the training range, stretching and chatting casually. The rumor mill had already begun its work, fueled by curiosity and doubt. Some speculated she was a fresh college graduate with security clearance. Others whispered she was a transfer from another base, perhaps bringing unusual expertise. Her presence alone had become a point of intrigue. She made no effort to engage. She didn't need to. Her skill, as she would soon demonstrate, would speak for itself. The commander's gaze never left her. He remembered his first impressions of exceptional snipers. Focus, patience, and an almost unnatural calm. She carried herself with all three, and it was obvious even before she touched the weapon. When the moment came to assemble her rifle, the men around her took a step back instinctively. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who had performed this ritual hundreds of times unhurried, deliberate, exact. Each component clicked into place, and the Barrett transformed from a collection of metal and mechanics into an extension of the shooter herself. "Good," the commander said under his breath, though no one heard. "Not bad for a first glance, muttered a senior NCO nearby, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Let's see if the skill matches the composure. Training began almost immediately. The other soldiers lined up for routine marksmanship drills, firing on targets at medium distances. Sweat poured down their faces. Hands trembled under the weight and recoil of their rifles. Many missed repeatedly, the desert wind wreaking havoc on their calculations. The newcomer stepped to her station, setting her rifle on the rest with careful precision. She scanned her first target, assessing distance and wind. A deep, measured breath, a steady heartbeat, and she squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, sharp and true, and the bullet struck dead center. A ripple of astonishment went through the unit. They watched her fire several more rounds, each as precise as the last, with unflinching control. No movement betrayed nerves, no shake betrayed fatigue. Every shot was deliberate, every adjustment calculated. Even the rival sniper in the unit, a veteran who prided himself on extreme-range kills, found his jaw tightening. The commander's curiosity became interest. He had seen exceptional marksmen before, but there was something rare in the synergy between her mind and body, the calm precision and absolute confidence. It suggested a background far beyond routine training. Something legendary. She packed up her rifle after the exercise, movements just as meticulous as before. The other soldiers murmured among themselves. Some grudgingly admitted respect, others tried to rationalize her skill away as luck or exaggeration. The commander, however, was already digging. Quietly, he tasked his intelligence officer to begin verifying her records. Rumors of a long-range sniper record had circulated in hushed tones, but no one had confirmed it. He intended to find out, and what he discovered would shake the unit to its core. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the desert, she sat alone, checking her gear. She did not boast, did not speak, but every movement screamed readiness. The commander watched from a distance, noting the patience and discipline that defined her. A record-breaking sniper did not announce herself. She let her results speak. And the results, he suspected, would be extraordinary. By evening, the initial skepticism of the unit had shifted. Curiosity had given way to cautious respect. And the commander, now convinced this soldier was unlike any he had seen, made a mental note. Today had been only the first step in understanding her true capability. The desert wind whispered across the range, carrying dust and tension alike. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. The morning sun had barely touched the jagged Nevada hills when the unit assembled for the day's first live-fire exercises. The air was crisp but dry, carrying the scent of sand and spent gunpowder from previous drills. Soldiers shuffled into position, adjusting their scopes, checking windage, and whispering tactical calculations to themselves. Today was no ordinary training day. The commander had organized extreme-range drills with targets placed at distances, meant to push the limits of any sniper's skill. He wanted to see not only marksmanship, but composure, patience, and mental endurance. The newcomer stood apart from the rest, her rifle already unpacked and meticulously checked. Unlike the others, she did not fidget or mutter calculations aloud. Her eyes scanned the desert expanses, taking note of every ridge, every variation in wind direction, every subtle glint that might betray a target. Her stance was relaxed yet purposeful. To anyone watching casually, it might seem like she was waiting. But the commander knew patience was the hallmark of an expert. A young private struggled with his rifle, the recoil jerking him backward with every shot. "It's too heavy," he shouted, sweat running down his face. Miss after miss marked his record. Frustration bubbled in the ranks. The commander observed silently. Years of experience had taught him that panic and ego were the enemy of accuracy. Precision required calculation and restraint qualities he already recognized in the newcomer. She knelt, positioned her rifle on the rest, and exhaled slowly. A glance through her scope revealed the target, perched at a nearly impossible distance. Wind gusted unpredictably across the range, dust swirling in chaotic eddies. Most snipers would hesitate or miscalculate under such conditions. She didn't. She adjusted for the subtle shift, factoring in elevation, temperature, and barometric pressure almost subconsciously. Then she squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck dead center, ringing against the steel target with a sharp, metallic ping. A ripple of astonishment passed through the assembled soldiers. The young private dropped his jaw. The rival sniper's face darkened in disbelief, and whispers spread through the ranks. Did she just? The commander's eyes narrowed. He had suspected competence, but this was beyond ordinary skill. One by one, the other soldiers attempted the same shot, but the wind, distance, and psychological pressure claimed them all. Some hit the target only after multiple adjustments. Others failed entirely. Each failure only highlighted her composure. She adjusted, breathed, and fired again. Every strike hit exactly as she intended. The commander stepped closer, wanting to observe the subtleties in her technique, the way her shoulder absorbed recoil, the precision in her breathing, the faint flex of muscles that most would ignore. After the exercise, soldiers gathered, still murmuring. Some were incredulous. "She's a freak," muttered one. "No human can calculate all that in seconds." Another nodded. "I've been in long-range units for years, and I've never seen a shot like that this distance." The commander, however, remained quiet. He didn't rely on hearsay or rumors. He wanted proof. Every great sniper had a story, and every story had a record. He suspected hers might be extraordinary, but he needed verification. He called the newcomer over. "Let's see your previous logs," he said. His voice carried authority, but also curiosity. She handed over her records without hesitation. The commander scanned the documents, deployments, training scores, operational commendations, but then he froze. One entry caught his attention. A verified sniper kill at 3,247 meters. The numbers stared back at him like a challenge. He had known extreme-range snipers, but nothing on record approached this distance. "Is this verified?" he asked, disbelief mingling with respect. "Yes, sir," she replied calmly. "Official record, documented through operational channels." A hush fell over the nearby soldiers. Some gasped audibly. Others exchanged skeptical glances. The rival sniper, who had spent years boasting about his own kills, clenched his fists. He muttered under his breath, unable to hide a mixture of frustration and awe. The commander's eyes, however, held only measured recognition. He knew the danger of arrogance in his line of work. Humility paired with skill was far more formidable. Training continued throughout the day, escalating in difficulty. Targets moved unpredictably, distances increased, and environmental challenges intensified. Soldiers struggled, some visibly shaken, while she maintained an almost preternatural calm. She made mental notes of the shifting sun, a slight change in wind patterns, and the varying temperatures affecting ballistics. She never rushed, never panicked, never displayed anything that could hint at uncertainty. Every shot was calculated, precise, almost effortless in appearance. At one point, the commander set a target at an extreme distance beyond anything normally attempted. The younger soldiers balked, exchanging uneasy glances. "No way," muttered a corporal, his hands trembling slightly. "It's too far. Nobody can hit that." She knelt, set up her rifle, and surveyed the range. A few soldiers held their breath, the desert silence heavy with tension. Time seemed to stretch as she exhaled and steadied herself. Then click. The rifle discharged. The bullet traced its invisible arc, and a distant steel plate exploded in a perfect strike. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. The commander's eyebrows lifted slightly. He had seen impossible shots in stories and legends, but this was real, and it was happening before his eyes. By late afternoon, the training exercises concluded. Soldiers were exhausted, sweating, and mentally drained. Many approached the newcomer hesitantly, wanting tips, explanations, or just a glimpse of her technique. She offered no bragging advice, only measured suggestions, emphasizing fundamentals: breathing, patience, and observation. Even the rival sniper nodded begrudgingly, realizing that her skill could not be ignored. The commander remained behind, studying her quietly as she packed her rifle. He noted every detail: how she maintained composure, how she treated her weapon, how she seemed to anticipate every challenge without haste. He realized he had underestimated her, not because of her gender, but because true mastery often hides behind silence. She didn't need to announce herself. Her actions spoke for themselves, and they screamed excellence. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, the commander made a decision. He would verify her record personally and assess her suitability for the unit's most sensitive operations. If the documents were true, he was not merely observing a skilled sniper. He was witnessing someone capable of redefining what extreme range sniping could accomplish. The weight of possibility pressed on him, a mix of admiration and strategic consideration. That evening, as the base quieted, soldiers returned to barracks, buzzing with speculation. The newcomer remained focused, checking her gear with meticulous care. No words, no ego, just preparation. The commander watched from a distance, understanding that the real story, the one that would define her place in the unit, was only beginning. Patience, skill, and an extraordinary record marked her as someone exceptional. Tomorrow, the true tests of endurance, precision, and leadership would begin. And for the commander, one thought lingered. He had underestimated her today, and he would never make that mistake again. The early morning sun painted the Nevada desert in sharp golds and deep shadows. The base was quiet, except for the distant hum of armored vehicles and the occasional clatter of rifles being prepped. Inside the command center, the commander sat at a cluttered desk, his eyes scanning a series of military files and archived reports on the newest sniper in his unit. For hours, he had traced her career, combing through deployment logs, live fire exercises, and operational commendations. The more he read, the more the whispers that had circulated among the men were confirmed, not rumors, but the unvarnished truth. The record was impossible, extraordinary, and verified. A confirmed sniper kill at 3,247 meters, executed under operational conditions in hostile terrain. The commander leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly, trying to absorb the significance. He had known exceptional snipers before, men and women who could manipulate wind, elevation, and bullet trajectory with near psychic precision, but this shattered everything he thought he knew about extreme-range marksmanship. "Sir," muttered his intelligence officer, clearing his throat nervously, "all sources check out. Operational logs, video verification, even post-mission reports from other units. She's legit." The commander's gaze narrowed. He had been trained to rely on proof, not bravado. And yet, the proof he now held seemed almost unreal. "Prepare a full dossier," he said. "I want every record, every commendation, everything we can find on her past missions. Cross-reference with operational archives. I want a complete picture. And quietly, no one outside the command needs to know yet." Meanwhile, across the base, the soldiers were buzzing. The newcomer had moved silently through the day's exercises, but whispers of her skill had spread like wildfire. Some were skeptical, some in awe, and others quietly intimidated. The rival sniper, a seasoned marksman with years of extreme-range kills under his belt, felt the first pricklings of unease. He had been the unit's undisputed long-range authority until now. During a lunch break, he approached her with thinly veiled curiosity. "You really hit those targets?" he asked, tone half challenging, half disbelieving. She looked up calmly, expression unreadable. "Every one," she replied simply, as though stating the obvious. He laughed, sharp and incredulous. "At those distances? Most of us can barely see the target, let alone hit it." "What's your secret?" "Discipline," she said. "Patience, observation, that's all you need." He frowned, unconvinced, but the tension was clear. Among the men, doubt was slowly giving way to reluctant acknowledgement. She wasn't bragging. She didn't need to. Her skill spoke for itself. Later, the commander convened a private meeting with senior officers to discuss her records. He spread the documents across the table: photos, logs, mission reports, even satellite confirmation of the long-range sniper kill. Eyes widened around the room. "This," the commander said, pointing to the file, "is not just exceptional. It's unprecedented. A confirmed operational kill at 3,247 meters. No one in our history comes close." One of the officers, a veteran NCO, shook his head. "That's insane. You don't just do that without years of preparation, extreme precision, and a cool head under pressure." The commander nodded. "Exactly. And she possesses all of it, quietly, without drawing attention. That's dangerous in the best possible way." He leaned back, contemplative. "We've underestimated her from the start. We won't make that mistake again." Back on the range, the soldiers continued drills. The newcomer moved methodically, firing round after round with flawless accuracy. Observing her, the commander saw more than marksmanship. He saw strategy, observation, and instinct honed to perfection. Every glance through the scope, every adjustment for wind and elevation, every pause before the shot revealed a mind working several steps ahead of the rest. The rival sniper couldn't hide his frustration. "She's not just skilled," he muttered to another marksman. "She's something else. Something none of us can touch." The newcomer ignored the whispers, focused solely on her training. Her calm demeanor unsettled some, inspired others. By the end of the day, the unit had reached a new understanding. This woman was not here to compete or prove herself. She was here to excel. That evening, the commander decided to observe her in private. From a distance, he watched as she inspected her Barrett .50, cleaning every part with meticulous care. She checked her scope, adjusted the bipod, and even measured the sand's temperature and wind shifts. Her focus was absolute. For the commander, it was a revelation. Talent alone did not explain her skill. It was preparation, discipline, and a mindset honed over years. He made a mental note to adjust her training schedule. If she could perform at this level under ordinary exercises, there was no telling what she could do in extreme scenarios. He also realized another truth. The unit would need to adapt to her presence. Rival snipers would no longer be the unquestioned leaders in long-range operations. Respect would have to be earned, and in this case, it had already been earned silently, through precision and patience. Rumors of her record began to filter through the ranks, though unofficially. Soldiers speculated quietly in barracks, around meals, and in the gym. Some couldn't believe it. Others were inspired. The commander knew that managing perception was as important as leveraging skill. If the wrong ego clashed with hers in the field, operations could be compromised. Yet he had faith that discipline would guide her, and that was a rare quality indeed. Late that night, the commander reviewed her file again. Her operational history was extensive. Hostile deployments, reconnaissance missions in extreme conditions, confirmed long-range engagements, and multiple commendations for precision marksmanship. He noted the psychological evaluations, all pointing to the same traits: calm under pressure, highly analytical, and remarkably disciplined. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a force multiplier, someone who could elevate the entire unit's effectiveness. He leaned back, letting the weight of it settle. This was not a rookie to be tested and corrected. She was a seasoned professional whose skill demanded recognition and careful utilization. The commander realized he had a responsibility not just to her, but to the entire unit, to integrate her properly, to challenge her appropriately, and to ensure her capabilities were applied where they mattered most. The desert outside cooled under the evening sky, and the unit settled into routine. Soldiers prepared for rest, though many lay awake, whispering and replaying the day's exercises in their minds. The newcomer remained in the training area, performing minor maintenance on her rifle and reviewing her notes. Every action reinforced a simple truth: she did not seek glory. She sought mastery. The commander finally left the observation post, returning to his quarters with a mix of admiration and contemplation. He had witnessed talent before, but nothing like this. The day had confirmed what he suspected. This sniper was extraordinary. Quietly, methodically, and without fanfare, she had proven herself. And tomorrow, he knew, the next stage of training would push her further, testing not just skill, but patience, endurance, and mental fortitude. As he lay in bed, the commander reflected on the implications. In a world where precision, strategy, and human judgment could mean life or death, she was a weapon, unlike any other, a silent force that could change outcomes in ways few could predict. Her record wasn't just a number on paper. It was proof of potential realized under extreme conditions. And the entire unit, whether they realized it or not, would soon understand the significance. The desert night was silent, save for the distant hum of military vehicles and the whisper of wind over sand dunes. Somewhere on the base, the sniper prepared for tomorrow, focused, calm, and ready. The commander understood one thing clearly: her story had only just begun. And when it unfolded fully, it would leave no one in doubt of her remarkable skill. The desert dawn broke with a sharp clarity, casting long shadows over the jagged terrain. Today was different. The commander had arranged a live-fire extreme-range drill, designed to push the soldiers and the newcomer sniper to their absolute limits. Targets had been placed at distances that few could even attempt to visualize, much less hit. The wind whispered through the valleys, carrying fine sand and dust that danced like invisible obstacles across the vast training range. Soldiers gathered in tense anticipation, rifles in hand, sweat already beading on brows despite the early hour. Many whispered anxiously, exchanging glances that betrayed both fear and awe. Today, more than any other day, the newcomer's skill would be tested in front of the entire unit. She approached the station methodically, her Barrett .50 disassembled and carefully packed. With calm precision, she reassembled it, checking each component as if performing a ritual. Her movements were deliberate, flawless, and unhurried, drawing a mixture of curiosity and apprehension from her fellow soldiers. The commander stood a short distance away, observing, his sharp eyes tracking every motion. He had seen snipers in extreme-range scenarios before, but few exhibited this combination of confidence, patience, and mental focus. Even now, watching her assemble the Barrett, he sensed a level of skill that surpassed his expectations. Every minute action spoke of experience and discipline honed to perfection. The drill began. Soldiers took positions on elevated ridges, scanning the distant targets scattered across the desert's undulating terrain. Many struggled immediately. Wind gusts altered the trajectory of their rounds. Heat shimmered across the landscape, making the targets seem to move. The mental strain of calculating distance, elevation, and environmental factors overwhelmed several younger soldiers. Misses rang out, frustrations bubbled, and confidence faltered. She knelt at her designated firing station, rifle settled carefully on the rest. Her breathing was steady, unhurried. She surveyed the range, mentally mapping every ridge, every slight dip in the desert floor, and every swirling eddy of wind. Her mind worked silently, methodically, calculating angles and trajectories, adjusting for elevation and wind drift in a way that appeared almost preternatural. The other soldiers watched her out of the corner of their eyes, some in disbelief, some in growing respect, and others in silent anxiety. The commander's voice crackled over the radio. All units, engage targets. Focus on precision, not speed. One by one, soldiers squeezed triggers. Missed shots rang across the desert, each one a reminder of the difficulty. Even the veteran snipers struggled, adjusting scopes repeatedly, trying to account for wind shifts. Several rounds skimmed past the distant steel targets, sending small plumes of dust as reminders of failed calculations. The tension grew with every missed attempt. The newcomer remained still, her focus unwavering. She exhaled slowly, feeling the wind's subtle shifts against her cheek, noting the way heat waves distorted the horizon. Then, with the calm precision that had already begun to unsettle her peers, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle's massive recoil rocked her shoulder, but she absorbed it seamlessly. The bullet traced an invisible arc across the desert and ping. Hit the distant steel target dead center. A collective gasp rose from the assembled soldiers. Some whispered incredulously. Others stared, frozen. The rival sniper's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. He had been the unit's uncontested expert in extreme range marksmanship, and now he realized someone had surpassed him in a way he hadn't anticipated. The commander's eyes flickered with approval and quiet astonishment. He knew then that this drill would not be merely a training exercise. It would redefine the unit's understanding of what was possible. She fired again, adjusting slightly for a subtle change in wind. Another target shattered perfectly. Her calculations were flawless. Every shot reinforced the lesson. Patience and discipline outweighed raw power or ego. The other soldiers tried to replicate her success, but the desert refused them. Dust swirled, targets blurred through heat waves, and nerves betrayed even the most experienced marksmen. One by one, their failures highlighted the difference between practice and mastery. The commander finally approached, stepping quietly behind her position. He observed her as she adjusted her scope, recalculated the trajectory, and fired again with unerring accuracy. "Impressive," he said, voice low but carrying authority. Most snipers would give up at these distances. Few would even attempt it. She looked up briefly, expression calm, eyes steady. "I don't focus on others. I focus on the shot." The simplicity of her answer carried weight. In those words lay the philosophy that had brought her here. Observation, calculation, patience, and execution. She did not need recognition or validation. The results spoke for themselves. As the drill continued, the commander observed her mental discipline as much as her technical skill. Unlike the other soldiers, she did not flinch under pressure, nor did she allow environmental factors to disrupt her calculations. The wind shifted, the sun climbed, the desert shimmered with heat, but she adapted seamlessly. Each shot was perfect, each target obliterated. By mid-afternoon, it was clear. This sniper had reached a level that few could comprehend, let alone challenge. The rival sniper approached cautiously. "What distance is that last target?" he asked, voice edged with disbelief. "Beyond 1,500 meters, she replied evenly, her eyes returning to the next target. "Focus on your fundamentals." He scowled but nodded, silently acknowledging her superiority. Around the range, the younger soldiers were now fully captivated, some even taking notes, trying to glean insight into her technique. It wasn't just marksmanship. They were witnessing the psychological edge, a calm confidence that made impossible shots seem inevitable. By late afternoon, the drill concluded. Every soldier had failed to match her precision. The commander gathered the unit, his eyes lingering on her. "This is what mastery looks like," he said. "It's not about speed or ego or boasting. It's about patience, calculation, and composure under pressure. Learn from this and apply it to every mission you undertake." Soldiers nodded, some reluctantly, some inspired, but all aware that they had witnessed something rare. The newcomer simply packed her rifle, checked her gear with meticulous care, and left without a word. Her humility was as remarkable as her skill. The commander remained behind, watching her leave. He understood then that she was not just a record holder, she was a force multiplier, someone who could shift the entire unit's capabilities. Every strategic decision, every long-range engagement, could now be executed with a level of confidence previously impossible. His respect deepened, tempered with the responsibility of integrating such extraordinary talent into high-stakes operations. That evening, back in the command center, the commander reviewed her record once more. The verification of the 3,247-meter sniper kill now seemed more than just numbers. It was proof of a skill set forged in extreme conditions, honed over years, and executed with unwavering precision. He realized that the real challenge wasn't just managing her skill. It was ensuring that the unit could operate alongside someone who redefined expectations at every level. The sun set over the desert, casting a blood-red glow across the ridges and valleys of the training range. Soldiers returned to their quarters, exhausted but buzzing with newfound respect. The rival sniper stayed silent, contemplative. He knew he had met someone exceptional, someone who could no longer be underestimated. The newcomer had not just passed the test. She had elevated it, showing the entire unit what was possible when patience, preparation, and precision converged. And somewhere deep within the commander, a thought lingered. This sniper's story was only beginning. Her skill had been revealed, her record verified, but the true measure of her impact on the battlefield, on the unit, and on the enemy was yet to come. Tomorrow, the training would intensify. The challenges would escalate. And the desert, with all its harshness and unpredictability, would bear witness to a sniper who was already legendary, yet still quietly preparing for the impossible. The sun was high over the Nevada base when the commander called a formal briefing in the operations room. The air inside was thick with anticipation, the low hum of ventilation, the only sound as soldiers gathered, eyes flicking nervously toward the front. Whispers of the newcomer's skill had already spread like wildfire, but today the truth would be revealed, verified, and official. The room fell silent as the commander stepped forward, a stack of documents in his hands, his expression unreadable but intense. "Attention," he said, voice sharp and commanding. "I have something important to share." He paused, letting the tension build. Soldiers shifted in their seats, some curious, some skeptical, and others already aware of the murmured rumors. The commander laid out the records, operational logs, verified deployment reports, and satellite confirmations of engagements. Each document highlighted precision, strategy, and composure beyond ordinary human skill. Then he reached the final report, a single line highlighted in red, a confirmed sniper kill at 3,247 meters. The room collectively froze. "This," the commander said, tapping the document, "is not a mistake. This is verified. Our newest sniper has accomplished what no one else has at a distance that exceeds current operational records. 3,247 meters. One shot. One kill." Gasps echoed across the room. Soldiers exchanged glances, some wide-eyed, some stunned into silence. The rival sniper, the unit's long-range authority, stared at the documents, jaw tightening. Years of experience, years of being the benchmark for skill, suddenly felt challenged. Even he could not deny the reality before him. "Sir, that's impossible," whispered a young corporal, voice tinged with awe. No one should be able to calculate wind, elevation, and bullet drop perfectly at that distance. The commander nodded. "She can. And she doesn't rely on luck. She relies on discipline, observation, and preparation. Qualities we all should learn from." He let the words hang for a moment. Then, his gaze shifted to the newcomer, who remained standing quietly near the back of the room, her posture calm, expression neutral. She did not raise her head or boast. She simply observed, as she always did, allowing her results to speak. Several soldiers stepped forward, some hesitantly, some in curiosity. They asked questions, wanting to know more about her method, her background, her training. She answered with simple precision, revealing only enough to demonstrate her experience without bragging. "Every shot is calculated," she explained. "Observation, patience, and focus. You don't rely on skill alone. You prepare, you anticipate, and you execute without hesitation when the time is right." Her calm, confident demeanor only heightened the impact of the revelation. The unit's initial skepticism had shifted into admiration, and in some cases, quiet intimidation. For younger soldiers, she became a figure to emulate. For seasoned veterans, a benchmark they had yet to surpass. The rival sniper approached cautiously. How do you manage that at extreme ranges?" he asked, voice low, almost a challenge. "Practice, repetition, observation, and patience," she replied evenly, as if reciting an equation rather than giving advice. The commander watched the exchange with interest. Rivalry had a place in training, but humility and recognition of skill were equally essential. This sniper had earned her place without seeking it. Her record wasn't just a number, it was proof of competence, discipline, and composure under conditions that would overwhelm most. After the briefing, soldiers returned to their routines, but the atmosphere had shifted. Conversations were now punctuated with admiration and curiosity. Whispers of unreal and legendary circled among the ranks. The commander, however, focused on the practical implications. A sniper of this caliber was not just a record holder. She was an operational force multiplier, someone whose presence could tip the balance in missions where precision, patience, and calculation were paramount. Later that afternoon, the commander convened a private meeting with her. The office was quiet, the low hum of the base in the background. Documents, maps, and operational reports were spread across the table. "You have our full confidence," the commander said, voice measured. "But it's not about recognition or records. It's about integration. Your skill can save lives and secure missions that others cannot." She nodded, absorbing his words. "Understood, sir. I focus on results, not accolades." "Good," he replied. "Tomorrow, we'll begin integrating you into upcoming operations. Your skill will be essential, but so will your judgment. You're not just a sniper, you're a tactical asset. Understand that, and the unit will function at a new level." Over the next several hours, the unit underwent exercises designed to demonstrate and capitalize on her capabilities. She coordinated with spotters, identified threats at extreme distances, and executed scenarios with precision. Soldiers observed, learning not just marksmanship, but discipline, timing, and situational awareness. Every action reinforced her reputation, not as a record holder alone, but as a soldier who elevated the performance of those around her. The rival sniper, once confident in his status, adjusted. He studied her technique quietly, observing her patience, her methodical calculations, and her ability to remain unflustered under pressure. By day's end, Even he acknowledged her skill, albeit silently. The commander reviewed the day's events in his private quarters. The verification of her record was monumental, but its implications extended beyond recognition. The unit's morale had shifted. Younger soldiers were inspired, veterans recalibrating expectations, and even skeptical rivals now respected her. Operationally, she represented a new paradigm in extreme range. Engagement 1 that could redefine the unit's capabilities in hostile environments. As the sun set over the desert, casting elongated shadows across the base, soldiers reflected on the day's revelations. The newcomer remained focused, preparing her rifle and reviewing notes meticulously, unaffected by the attention or admiration. Humility, skill, and discipline were inseparable in her presence, and that combination demanded respect. The commander's thoughts lingered on the future. Verification of a 3,247-meter sniper kill was more than a record. It was a signal. Enemy forces, should they learn of her abilities, would think twice. Within the unit, she would become both a teacher and a benchmark. Tomorrow, deployment simulations would push her further, and the real tests, where lives hung in the balance, would follow. Her presence had changed the unit's dynamic, her skill a quiet revolution. The commander understood this. She was no longer a newcomer to observe. She was a leader in her own right, capable of shaping the success of missions and the growth of the soldiers around her. And somewhere in the distance, across the desert's ridges, the winds carried the promise of challenge, precision, and extreme range calculations. The unit, now aware of the extraordinary capabilities within their ranks, prepared for the next stage. The sniper who had shattered records would now face scenarios where the stakes were real, and her skill would be tested beyond verification. The night settled over the base, calm but tense, as the commander reflected on what he had witnessed. Exceptional skill, verified record, unwavering discipline, the combination was rare, even legendary. Tomorrow, the desert would see her skill tested in ways that went beyond observation or drills. Lives, missions, and the trust of her comrades depended on her ability to execute with the same patience and precision that had earned her that record. The world now knew she existed. The unit would soon learn what it meant to operate alongside a sniper whose ability had no peer. And the commander, seasoned and experienced, understood that history had already begun taking note quietly, relentlessly, in the silence before the next shot. The desert sun rose over the operational zone, casting a harsh glare across rocky ridges and arid valleys. The unit had been deployed overseas, tasked with securing a remote outpost under frequent threat from hostile forces. Dust swirled along dirt roads, carried by winds that seemed to anticipate every movement. Soldiers moved cautiously, weapons ready, eyes scanning for potential ambushes. Every sound could signal danger. Every shadow might conceal an enemy. The newcomer sniper surveyed the terrain from an elevated ridge, her Barrett .50 resting solidly on the bipod. Spotting targets at extreme distances wasn't new to her, but the stakes were different. Here, every calculation could mean life or death. Enemy snipers had been reported in the area. Insurgents skilled in long-range engagements threatened the unit daily. The commander, watching from a tactical observation point nearby, knew this deployment would reveal the true measure of her abilities. The tension in the unit was palpable. Younger soldiers whispered nervously, exchanging glances filled with anticipation and anxiety. Veteran marksmen remained silent, their eyes constantly scanning for threats, their pride tempered by the knowledge that the newcomer's reputation was no exaggeration. Every movement in the desert seemed magnified, every gust of wind a potential challenge. Suddenly, the radio crackled. Contact at 1,800 meters. Enemy sniper confirmed. They're targeting the southern flank. The commander's eyes narrowed. He turned to the newcomer. You're on overwatch. Identify the threat and neutralize it. Lives depend on your precision. She nodded, adjusting her scope, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the distant ridge. The wind shifted unpredictably, sand flickering across the landscape, but her composure remained unbroken. The other soldiers watched in awe as she began calculations silently, factoring elevation, wind drift, temperature, and distance. Every second counted, and yet she moved with calm, deliberate precision. Minutes passed like hours as she studied the terrain. Then, a faint glint in the sun revealed movement on the enemy's ridge. The commander observed silently, feeling the weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders. This wasn't a training drill. This was real. Lives hung in the balance. The young sniper took a slow, steady breath, aligned the scope, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, resonating across the desert valley. The enemy sniper was neutralized instantly. A stunned silence fell across the unit. Then, whispers of disbelief spread. "Did you see that?" One soldier murmured. "She didn't even flinch." The commander allowed himself a moment of approval. This was the precision he had suspected, now proven under real-world conditions. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, calculate extreme-range shots, and execute flawlessly was not just exceptional, it was life-saving. The day's engagement was far from over. Insurgent forces had begun maneuvering across multiple ridges, attempting to isolate the outpost. The unit relied on her to provide overwatch, neutralize threats, and coordinate observation reports. Each engagement tested her patience and calculation. Bullets whistled past as she adjusted her aim, calculated the new distances, and dispatched targets with lethal efficiency. The rival sniper, initially skeptical, now observed her intently. Even he could not deny her expertise. Her shots were precise, deadly, and timed perfectly to support advancing squad movements. Soldiers took cover behind rocks and vehicles, glancing at the newcomer for guidance, knowing that her calculations would determine whether they could advance safely. The commander communicated over the radio, coordinating with her silently. Southern Ridge compromised 3 hostiles moving toward observation post. Her voice, calm and precise, returned. Targets identified. Adjusting for wind gusts. Engaging now. The sound of rifle fire echoed as she executed another perfect series of shots, each neutralizing the advancing threats without collateral damage. Soldiers in the field moved with increased confidence, shielded by her overwatch and deadly accuracy. The unit began to rely on her as both a weapon and a stabilizing force, the embodiment of tactical mastery and composure under fire. By late afternoon, the engagement had concluded. The outpost was secure, no friendly casualties reported, and the insurgents had retreated. Soldiers gathered quietly, exhausted but deeply impressed. Some approached her to express respect and gratitude. Younger soldiers, inspired by her calm efficiency and lethal precision, asked questions about technique and calculation. She offered measured advice, emphasizing observation, patience, and mental discipline over brute skill. The commander approached, studying her silently for a moment before speaking. "Today proved what I suspected," he said. "You're not just a record holder, you're a force multiplier. Your skill saved lives. Your judgment ensured the mission's success. That's invaluable." She nodded, eyes steady. "I focus on results. The record is irrelevant in combat." The commander allowed himself a small smile. Humility, skill, and effectiveness, a rare combination. He understood the challenge of integrating such a talent into a unit without causing friction. Yet today, she had earned the respect of every soldier present. Night fell over the operational zone, cooling the desert and casting long shadows across the ridges. Soldiers settled into defensive positions, but the atmosphere had shifted. Confidence replaced fear. Respect replaced skepticism. Even the rival sniper, who had once been the unit's benchmark for extreme range engagement, now regarded her as an equal, and perhaps in some respects, a superior. The commander reviewed the day's events in the quiet of his observation post. Each shot, each calculation, each life saved reinforced a singular truth. She was extraordinary. Verification of her 3,247-meter record was no longer abstract. It had been proven in combat, where error could not be tolerated. The psychological impact on the unit was equally significant. Soldiers now understood that precision, discipline, and calm under pressure were as important as experience and firepower. Later, the newcomer returned to her station, inspecting her Barrett .50 with meticulous care. Even after a long day of high-stakes engagement, her movements were precise, methodical, and deliberate. She maintained the same calm focus that had characterized her record-breaking exercises and deployment actions. The commander watched from a distance, reflecting on what he had seen. Her composure and effectiveness under fire marked her as not only a skilled sniper, but a leader in her own right, a soldier whose influence extended beyond her weapon. The desert night was quiet, but the base was alive with whispered admiration. Soldiers shared accounts of her precision and judgment. The unit had been transformed by witnessing not just skill, but mastery under conditions that would test even the most seasoned veterans. The commander knew that the story of her deployment would spread quietly, inspiring others, reinforcing discipline, and setting a new standard for extreme-range snipers. As the wind shifted across the ridges, carrying the faint scent of sand and spent gunpowder, the commander allowed himself one thought. This sniper had not only proven her record, it had been realized under combat conditions, where calculation, composure, and lethal precision mattered most. She was no longer a newcomer. She was a cornerstone of operational capability, a stabilizing presence, and a silent force whose impact would echo across missions to come. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Hostile forces would test the unit again. The desert, unpredictable and unforgiving, would continue to push every soldier to their limits. But with her presence, the commander knew the unit had a chance to operate at a level previously unattainable. Extreme range engagements, enemy snipers, ambush, none would catch them unprepared. The sniper's record was no longer a distant legend. It was a proven reality, and the unit would follow her lead. And somewhere beyond the ridges, under the desert sky, the enemy now had reason to be wary. A sniper existed whose skill transcended expectation, whose patience was unmatched, and whose composure under fire ensured that the next engagement could turn the tide of battle before it began. The desert dawn was tinged with crimson as the unit mobilized for a high-stakes operation. Intelligence reports indicated a heavily armed insurgent convoy moving through a narrow canyon, an ambush waiting to happen. The terrain favored the enemy: rocky ridges, hidden gullies, and unpredictable sightlines. The commander knew the mission's success hinged on precise overwatch, quick communication, and lethal accuracy. He had no doubts about whom he would rely on. The newcomer sniper was already in position, atop a steep ridge, Barrett .50 resting on its bipod, scope gleaming under the morning sun. Her spotter crouched nearby, a field radio in hand. Together, they surveyed the canyon, mentally mapping every possible path, every ambush point, every rise and fall in the terrain that could conceal a threat. The wind was unpredictable, swirling around ridges in sudden gusts. She adjusted calculations seamlessly, noting minute shifts in temperature and barometric pressure, factoring them all into the trajectory of her shots. Soldiers advanced cautiously through the canyon below, weapons at the ready, scanning every shadow. The commander coordinated from a vantage point nearby, directing movements via radio. The tension was palpable. Any misstep could result in casualties. Any delay in neutralizing enemy threats could compromise the operation. Then the first signs appeared, glinting reflections off weapons and vehicles, shadowy figures moving with precision through the canyon. "Targets identified," she whispered to her spotter. "Distance, 2,000 meters. Adjusting for wind gusts. Engage on my mark." The commander's eyes narrowed. This was no training exercise. Every calculation, every breath, every shot mattered. "Proceed when ready," he said. The sniper exhaled slowly, eyes locked on the scope. Her fingers squeezed the trigger. The first round cracked across the canyon, hitting its mark precisely, neutralizing the enemy combatant before he could raise his weapon. Another followed immediately after, taking out a second insurgent attempting to flank the advancing unit. Soldiers below froze momentarily, then pressed forward, now shielded by her overwatch. The enemy reacted quickly, seeking cover and returning fire. Bullets ricocheted off rocks. The sound of gunfire echoed through the canyon like rolling thunder. The commander observed silently, coordinating troop movements while trusting the sniper's judgment. Southern flank compromised. "Adjust positions," he barked over the radio. She recalculated instantly, adjusting for the sudden change in enemy positioning. Targets moving into cover, compensating for elevation and wind. Engaging now. The next 3 rounds found their marks with devastating precision. Hostile fire diminished as insurgents were eliminated or forced to retreat behind natural cover. Soldiers advanced, gaining ground safely where before the terrain would have left them vulnerable. The commander allowed himself a brief moment of approval. He had suspected her extraordinary skill, but witnessing it in a live combat scenario, where every decision had life or death consequences, was another level entirely. The unit pressed further into the canyon, supported entirely by her overwatch. She relayed observations continuously, directing attention to concealed threats, calculating the trajectory for each shot, and neutralizing high-risk targets at extreme distances. Soldiers began to move with renewed confidence, aware that the sniper above them provided both lethal precision and a stabilizing presence. At one point, insurgents attempted an ambush from a ridge previously thought secure. They opened fire on advancing soldiers, bullets striking dangerously close. "Southern Ridge," the commander shouted. "Overwatch." The sniper's eyes followed the glint of movement. She adjusted her aim slightly, calculated the distance, factored in wind shift, and fired. 2 insurgents fell before they could complete the attack. The soldiers below responded, pressing forward under the cover of her fire. The rival sniper, initially skeptical, now observed her with quiet respect. He recognized the subtle genius in her methodology, not just accuracy, but timing, communication, and composure under extreme pressure. Every shot was executed flawlessly, protecting lives and enabling strategic advances. As the convoy approached a choke point, the remaining insurgents attempted to regroup and set up a secondary ambush. The commander realized that without her precision, this maneuver could devastate the unit. He directed reinforcements while relying on her overwatch to neutralize immediate threats. She scanned the canyon, noting changes in elevation, wind shifts, and enemy repositioning. Secondary threat confirmed. Distance, 2,400 meters. Engaging. The shots fired were textbook perfection. Each bullet struck precisely where intended. The insurgents attempting to establish the ambush were neutralized before they could organize. Soldiers below moved unharmed through the canyon, advancing on the convoy with confidence bolstered by her accuracy. Hours passed like minutes as the unit worked systematically to secure the area. Every challenge, every unexpected threat, was met with calculated responses. The sniper above remained composed, tracking multiple threats simultaneously, executing extreme-range shots that would have been impossible for most. Her calm, methodical approach influenced the soldiers below, instilling discipline and confidence. By late afternoon, the mission was complete. The convoy was secured, insurgents eliminated or captured, and the outpost reinforced without a single friendly casualty. Soldiers gathered quietly, exhausted but in awe of the performance they had just witnessed. The newcomer climbed down from her elevated position, rifle in hand, face calm but eyes alert. She had not celebrated. She had not boasted. Her actions alone had spoken volumes. The commander approached, observing the subtle details. Her posture, the meticulous inspection of her weapon, her calm assessment of the terrain. "Today," he said, voice low but firm, "you saved lives. Your skill ensured success where failure was the alternative. That's operational excellence." She nodded. "I focus on results. Nothing else matters in combat." The unit, once skeptical, now treated her with a mixture of respect, admiration, and quiet reverence. Soldiers approached to thank her or to ask questions about her methodology. Younger soldiers hung on every word, eager to learn from her experience. Even the rival sniper acknowledged her superiority silently, realizing that her skill had redefined extreme range engagement standards. That evening, the commander reviewed the mission report, his mind racing with operational possibilities. Her verified record, now proven in live combat, had implications beyond personal achievement. Her presence could alter strategy, enhance unit efficiency, and save lives in ways previously unimaginable. Extreme range sniping was no longer theoretical. It was a tactical advantage realized in the field. The desert night settled quietly over the operational zone, but the impact of the mission resonated throughout the unit. Soldiers understood that her skill had shifted their expectations of what was possible. The commander recognized her as more than a sniper. She was a tactical linchpin whose judgment and precision under fire could determine the outcome of life or death scenarios. And as the wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the scent of dust and gunpowder, the commander reflected on one undeniable truth: she was extraordinary. Verified by record, tested in combat, and proven beyond doubt. Her story was far from over. Battles, missions, and operations lay ahead, each demanding the precision, patience, and composure that had already saved lives and elevated the unit to new heights. The desert sky glowed with the early morning sun, casting a golden sheen over the base. The previous day's engagement had left the unit both exhausted and transformed. Soldiers moved with a quiet confidence, their demeanor subtly altered by what they had witnessed: extreme range precision, life-saving judgment, and a calm presence under fire. The newcomer sniper had become more than a soldier. She had become a symbol of discipline, skill, and operational excellence. The commander convened a formal debriefing, inviting senior officers, squad leaders, and key soldiers. He stood at the head of the room, documents and reports spread neatly across the table. Every eye focused on him, and behind him, the sniper calm, collected and quiet, stood ready. Today was not merely a briefing. It was a recognition of her extraordinary contribution, her record verified in both controlled training and live combat. Over the past week, the commander began, voice steady, commanding attention. Our unit has witnessed unprecedented skill. We have seen precision beyond expectation, composure under extreme pressure, and judgment that has saved lives. Today, I am formally recognizing a sniper whose operational achievements set a new benchmark. He tapped a highlighted line in the operational report. A confirmed sniper kill at 3,247 meters. This is a verified record. Not theoretical, not exaggerated. It is the culmination of years of skill, training, and discipline. And it has been proven under live operational conditions. The room was silent for a moment. Soldiers absorbed the magnitude of the announcement. Whispers rippled. Through the ranks, some awestruck, some incredulous, and others quietly admiring. The rival sniper, standing with the other senior marksman, bowed his head slightly in acknowledgement. He had recognized her talent before, but now it was official, undeniable. Her actions, the commander continued, have not only secured victories in training exercises, but have also ensured the safety of every soldier under fire. She has transformed the operational capacity of this unit. From today onward, her techniques, judgment, and methodology will serve as a model for all snipers in this regiment. He gestured toward her, and for the first time, she met the commander's gaze. Her calm, unreadable expression remained unchanged, but the weight of recognition was palpable. She had never sought accolades. She had sought mastery. Yet now, mastery had been recognized, recorded, and honored. The commander cleared his throat. We will continue to integrate her into critical missions, using her skill where it is most effective. But beyond that, she serves as a standard, a mentor, and an example. Observe her. Learn from her. Apply her methods and judgment. That is the greatest recognition a soldier can give another. To respect skill, learn from it, and emulate it. Soldiers exchanged glances. Younger recruits whispered quietly, already inspired to emulate her precision, patience, and discipline. Even veteran snipers, who had once prided themselves on unmatched long-range skills, found themselves reconsidering their techniques. Respect had been earned silently, without boast or fanfare. Later, outside the operations center, the commander and the sniper walked through the base. Soldiers paused to acknowledge her quietly, nodding with subtle respect. No words were exchanged. Her presence alone conveyed authority and mastery. The commander finally spoke. "You've changed this unit," he said quietly, his eyes scanning the bustling soldiers. "Not with words, not with orders, but with results. Every soldier knows your skill now, and every decision they make will be influenced by what they have seen." She nodded slightly. "I focus on execution. The rest is secondary." "Execution," he said, considering the word. "Yes, and you do it better than anyone I have ever seen. That record, 3,247 meters, is more than a number. It's a testament to what discipline, patience, and observation can achieve. And it's proven under conditions that matter. In the field, in real life, not just on paper." The sniper simply nodded, scanning the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, sun glinting off ridges and valleys, shadows forming as dust swirled. It was a landscape that had challenged soldiers for generations, a place where precision, patience, and calm could save lives or cost them. She had proven she could master it. That evening, the commander addressed the unit once more. "This sniper has set a new standard," he said. "Her verified record is remarkable, yes. But more importantly, she has shown us what discipline, focus, and patience can achieve under real conditions. Learn from it. Apply it. Respect it. And when you do, your effectiveness, confidence, and survival increase exponentially." The unit absorbed the words silently, inspired, reflective, and motivated. Her presence had shifted not only the tactical capacity of the team, but also the psychological framework of the soldiers. Confidence, respect, and discipline now permeated the ranks. Later, the commander sat alone, reviewing the mission reports one final time. The sniper's performance had been flawless, her judgment impeccable, and her skill unparalleled. The 3,247-meter record, once a distant legend, had been confirmed, tested, and proven under extreme operational conditions. He understood now that this sniper would leave a legacy that would influence the unit for years to come, not through awards or accolades, but through the demonstration of skill, composure, and discipline. The night was quiet over the base. Soldiers rested, aware that tomorrow could bring new challenges, new missions, and new threats. But the knowledge of their sniper's capabilities, verified and proven, gave them a renewed sense of security, purpose, and confidence. The sniper prepared her weapon one final time before nightfall, methodically checking the rifle, cleaning the scope, and adjusting for environmental conditions. Even after an intense series of engagements and recognition, her focus remained unshaken. Humility, patience, and precision were her constant companions. The commander watched from a distance, reflecting on the extraordinary week that had unfolded. From the first training exercise to the verification of her record, to LEV deployment and life-saving engagements, the unit had witnessed something rare. This sniper had proven skill beyond measure, discipline beyond expectation, and composure beyond what most could comprehend. In that quiet moment, he realized one undeniable truth. Her legacy was not just in a number or a record, it was in the lives she had saved, the confidence she had instilled, and the standard she had set for the entire unit. She had transformed not just the outcome of missions, but the culture, mindset, and expectations of every soldier who had witnessed her skill. The desert wind whispered across the ridges, carrying with it the echoes of the day's battles and the promise of tomorrow's challenges. The commander knew that the sniper's story was far from over. She would continue to test boundaries, redefine expectations, and elevate the unit with her presence. And though she sought no glory, the record, 3,247 meters, would stand as a permanent testament to what one soldier, through discipline, focus, and precision, could achieve. As night deepened, the base settled into calm vigilance. The soldiers knew that danger could return at any moment. But now, with the sniper's skill verified and her operational mastery proven, confidence and discipline had been etched into the unit's very foundation. She had not only held a record, she had earned the unwavering trust and respect of every soldier around her. The commander, watching the desert under a canopy of stars, allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. Exceptional skill had met real-world application, and in the process, the unit had been transformed. The sniper's story verified, celebrated, and operationally proven would resonate in this unit long after today. Lives saved, missions secured, and standards elevated. That was her legacy. And somewhere beyond the ridges, beneath the endless desert sky, the legend of the sniper who had held a 3,247-meter record and executed it under fire was now immortalized, both in record and in the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed her mastery.